I'm Chairman Lawrence Robinson, the External Citizens Advisory Board for the Chief of Police. And I wanted to have a discussion with citizens of Richmond tonight about policing in the community. Who should be policing in the community? Police chosen for the job. Who does the choosing? How is it done? How can it prevent the wrong people from becoming police officers? Who should we hold on to as police officers? How do we get out bad apples? Because that's what we're talking about today. And also, I'm the founder of New Black World Order, an organization for the liberation of black people and all oppressed people around the world. So I brought Sergeant Sutton here with us tonight. He's in charge of recruitment with the Richmond Police Department, and he's here to answer some of our questions because in our meeting, it's not the whole city of Richmond to listen. And I thought that Sergeant Sutton definitely answered some tough questions pretty well, and I wanted the Richmond larger community to hear some of the questions and answers posed to Sergeant Sutton in regards to recruitment. I also believe that you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? Yeah. If we be realistic, if we went 7 days without policing as it exists today, it would be a pretty terrible situation. But we can't use that need to excuse black people being killed, Asian people being killed, Mexican people being killed, or white people being killed, citizens in general. So I would like to start this community meeting, this town hall meeting. Also, we have Xavier.
Yes, sir. Dr. D. Morgan in the house, holistic life and business coach. Listen, if you are looking at either one of those lives, make sure that you drop your questions below. Since you can't be in the room, right, I will definitely be your voice. It's loud enough. I will definitely be your voice to get your questions answered. We're going to have space for a few questions, so don't be shy. Anything that you've ever wanted to ask, you got your own questions, your own opinion about what's been going on in our communities about policing and defunding the police and what do you think should happen and anything like that. Go ahead and speak up about it. We got some good people up here tonight and we're here to try to answer any of your questions. So I got you.
Right. So the topic tonight is who should be policing in the black community? Should it be policing as usual? Should there be a group of citizens policing their own community? Should there be a middle ground where we do community patrols and work along with the police department? These are some of the questions that I want to put forth to the city to answer or provoke thought with you. So I also want to start with Sergeant Sutton explaining who he is and what is his job, and then we can proceed forward with the questions.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sergeant Stanley Sutton. I'm with the Richmond Police Department. I've been with the department for 15 years now. I'm in charge of the first recruitment unit for the Richmond Police Department, which makes me responsible for doing the testing for applicants, potential applicants who want to be police officers, doing their backgrounds, as well as putting them in the academy, not through the academy, but in the academy. But it's a very thorough process, and I'm sure we'll probably go into a little more detail on it a little later on.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my responsibility, just picking the future police officers that will use policing the city of Richmond. So.
Yeah. So in light of what Sergeant Sutton just said, we would like to, before I get started, I would like to take a moment of silence for Marcus Peters. And if we could take a moment of silence for a minute and bow our heads for Marcus Peters. Thank you so much, and I appreciate that. So could you explain to us how is it that you do the vetting? How do we prevent bad people? How do you actually do the vetting? Can anybody just walk in the police station and get a job? Can they have certain political beliefs, etc.? What is the details of how you do that?
It's a pretty thorough process, and we're always working to improve it. things change, time change, social media, things of that nature. We got to evolve with it. But first thing normally someone do, they'll go online to like the emergency website, and they'll put an application in. And we have a system that will screen the applications, make sure they're qualified, check anything like domestic violence or any felony offenses that they might have been convicted of. Make sure they're qualified for age or having a driver's license to operate in the city of Richmond police vehicle. So once that they get past that initial screening, then we review the application and we'll send them an invite to come out and test with us. And we'll also give them a background packet as well, like a background part one, to tell us like drug usage, any criminal offenses. It also tells us a little about their family, job history, things of that nature. And that's, we use that also like the initial screening process, because it'll help us initially weed out people who aren't qualified. We get a lot of drug usage, not just like marijuana, like hardcore drug usage. Somebody to do it a month ago and then want to be a police officer today, which is not a good look.
Okay, so what are some of the things that would qualify you for disqualify? Like, so you mentioned about drug usage, could someone like smoke marijuana and become a police officer? What are some of the other things that would disqualify you from police officer? I'm asking this question because if you want to see change in your community, you gotta become the change that you want to see. So if there are people joining the police department to specifically come and kill black people, then we gotta be the change that we want to see. So I'm trying to give some young man or some young girl out there who saw the Judge Floyd incident and they want to effect change within the police department. Since we obviously see that they're not going to dismantle the police department, then we're going to have to do change within the police department. So what are some of the things that would prevent a young child to become a police officer and want to actually do the work in the community rather than kill innocent citizens? So what are some of the things that would disqualify and qualify?
Biggest thing I said, like see drug usage, but like marijuana, so 1 year, as long as you have did it in 1 year, you can apply to be a police officer. Hardcore drugs, cocaine, LSD, meth, anything of that nature, it's a 4 year, that's the minimum 4 years. And it's not just because you did it means you qualify to be a police officer. We also look at the history, the usage, what you did during that time frame as well. So we take all those things into consideration. But any domestic violence convictions is disqualified. Any untruthfulness, whether you came in and said, I only smoked weed one time, and then you change it up later on, so I actually smoked weed 15 times, consider that untruthfulness. That's disqualified. We don't put it in part of that because it helps us weed out problems later on. If you allow something that simple right now, what will you allow about when you actually got a badge in the streets?
Right. Okay, so what if a person just had a little simple assault? What are some of the things that they could have done, but that they could have done?
Like if you got to a fight, you punch somebody or something like that, we're not going to go that against you. We're going to ask you about it, of course. So a little simple assault is something that doesn't automatically make a victim like death. That's where DCGS, so that's automatically disqualified. But yeah, we understand that people are not perfect. We all have a past. So we're not like getting ready because you did something stupid in your childhood. We made mistakes. We all make mistakes, and that's how we do it. I think we do pretty good at that compared to a lot of other jurisdictions. Really, everybody has a history. And also, we make some police officers really good, especially the ones who grew up in the community, so they can understand and relate to people and what they're going through, right, the environment in which they grew up in, like that. So we take all that into consideration.
Okay. So what are some of the things that will automatically qualify you to become an officer?
I would say it's there's no automatic qualifiers because ultimately what we do is we'll do the whole background. You're going to do a psych eval, you're going to do a medical examination, you're going to check your references, your friends, family, You can check your work history, you can contact all your employers. And so what my job is, once the detectives put everything together and written it up and present it to me, I read through it all in detail and also communicate with them while you're in the whole process. So they'll tell me, hey, Stanley Sutton, you want to go to U.S. good or this is a concern of mine. And it's my job to say, well, you know what, let's stop right there because that's something that we can't work past, or well, let's see where this goes. Because that's it, and that's not going to stop me from going through the process. But we'll continue. We look at the whole thing. So I look at it, I review it, I read it, and then I'll make a recommendation. Hire, do not hire. Those are basically my two recommendations. So once I review it and I make my recommendation and I write detailed notes on it, it goes to the chain of command. Ultimately, the chief of police has the ultimate say. But there are no automatic qualifiers for nobody because, you know, there's certain things that we look at that could be a red flag. And it's
Such as?
Behavior is, you know, if you known for like being very confrontational and fighting, especially on all your previous jobs, that's a concern for us. So what you need to come in contact with a citizen who might be having a bad day, how are you going to handle it? How are you going to act? So we look at those things. You know, we look for, you could have done that in your past, but we look for a pattern, like the years of good behavior, so that, you know, maybe that was when you were younger and a little more immature, and you matured, and now you are able and responsible to handle the badge that you're given, because it comes with a lot of responsibility. A lot of responsibility comes when you have that badge. So, yeah, but there are no automatic qualifiers. The chief looks at it, he makes a thorough decision, especially with this chief, he's very hard on our background process. Not hard in like he automatically people, but he questions everything. I've been doing this job for over 3 years now. I can say he's probably the most thorough chief I've seen. He looks at everything. He'll send the book back to me and say, hey, what we call the book, I call it an investigation, a background investigation. He'll send it back to you and say, explain this to me, or I want to know more about this. So everything. So we try to flip every rock, every leaf, you know, try to be as thorough as possible. And we'll always changing our process up, trying to make things better, trying to evolve, trying to make sure we catch the right things.
Also, so basically, there's a psychological test, also a mental health evaluation done on campus.
Yes, sir.
Could you explain that for the citizens of Richmond?
Psychological evaluation, especially a higher psychologist by us who will give you a test, 500 questions. A lot of us are better, but hopefully within that time frame, sort of reveals your true personality and who you really are. Because a lot of people try to be fake and not be themselves, to be what they think we want them to be, and we're hiding something from us. And so when they take the test already gives the psychologist a little guideline, sort of, you know, tells them a lot about you already. But then they want to do an in-person interview. Right now, because of COVID, it'll be an interview, they're virtual through Zoom, most likely. And they're going to question you and talk to you. And that's where we find out a lot about you.
Does that compromise the vetting process?
No, it doesn't compromise. Actually, it's better.
Or is it better?
It's actually better.
At
Yeah.
home? Like visiting them at home?
Yeah,
Maybe better than virtual?
yeah, because you know, at home people sort of tend to relax and be themselves and show who they really are. So that's better for us.
Okay.
You know, it's quite often that people come in there very upset about who we are, pretend to be someone they're not. And as we get through the background process, we find out more of the openness. We really try to be deceiving of who you really are, put on this image for us to hire you. So it just makes it easier.
Okay, so, another thing I wanted to ask was about, retention. Holding on to good officers, and what's the process of leading on to that happens? Because obviously, over the past years, that has taught us that there are, in January 6th, about the Capitol, shows that there are some bad apples. What is being done to hold on to good officers and lead on the bad officers?
I can't speak on it because I don't necessarily handle the job, but actually weed them out. So I don't want to be wrong, but everybody who is considered to be an issue or problem, they're thoroughly investigated by internal affairs division. And like I said, that's ultimately something that falls on the Office of the Chief of Police, that he reviews. That's not really my department, but when things come up, any complaint comes up, it definitely gets written up. It goes to the chief, it goes to internal affairs, it's reviewed by all parties. Any issues that may seem is questions, he wants a lot of details. He doesn't want any vague statements, he don't want nothing left out. He demands it from everybody. So, like I said, I wish I could speak more, but that's not exactly my job when it comes to terminating, shall I say.
Right, yeah.
The other part was about retention, keeping good officers. That's just, working, trying to keep morale up. Because, change is happening right now. And change is uncomfortable to a lot of people, let's be honest.
Right.
Regardless of what field you're in, a lot of people just don't.
Police reform is here.
Police reform is here. So you gonna adapt and overcome, or you gonna turn in your bag and walk away.
Right.
That's pretty much where we are right now.
Right, right.
Here we want to keep their morale up. We want to get them through this. It's an adjustment. It's not easy, but learning how to adjust, learning how to do things differently, taking the necessary steps to be better as a department, and working with the community, and getting past what we just went through last year.
Right,
Yeah,
it's the uprising.
the uprising and everything. Yeah,
That's like the people have spoken enough. Enough is enough for the bad officers.
Yeah.
So that's what I wanted to have this meeting about. Is the and I really want to get into, and I want the people to submit their questions because it's a town hall meeting, and I want people to ask questions and also if you have any questions.
Yeah, so, and we have, thank you for being here.
thank you.
Again, I'm Dr. Gordon. And, I have a question here from, Joanne Santos. And she's asking, how do you think we can make our community a better one as far as the police goes? I know that you said, in the previous question, you said that's not actually your position. You don't have the opportunity to weed out the bad apples. But aside from making the community better, I want to kind of rearrange your question, Ms.
Okay.
Joanne. How would you say that should be done? And how do you feel about, having these bad apples weeded out?
I'm all for it, because, regardless of, if somebody, an officer makes a mistake out of California, I'm gonna pay for it here, Virginia. And, a lot of officers, we don't like it because we feel like we shouldn't be held accountable for something that happened across the world, but it's the world we live in, so you gotta embrace it. I'm sorry, I'm trying to follow your question.
Yeah, so she's asking, so how would you go about making the neighborhood better?
So, it's hard, and I'm not gonna pretend, I'm not good at sugarcoating, I'm pretty honest with what.
That's what we like here. Over the
Talking
street.
to the street.
It's hard, it's not easy, especially after what we just went through, and there's a lot of mistrust, and some of us on the officer side, I'm just gonna be completely honest, they're worried. Some officers feel like, we were that bad towards the community. And I'm not defending it, but I'm saying, because a lot of officers actually do care about what they do, they do care about their jobs, but they get the blame for some stupid officers do. But it's gonna take a lot of community, it's gonna take a lot of talks like this, tough conversations that people don't like to have. And it's gonna take time for us doing events together, or just walking around, having general conversations. Action can speak louder than words.
Right.
Showing that you're trying to do better, showing that you're trying to take the correct steps to make things better with the community. But it's two-part, We can't do it on our own. It's gonna take the community taking a chance with us and giving us a fair chance to prove and show that things are getting better. We're meeting each other happily.
That's right.
So,
I agree with that.
so did I answer your question?
Yeah, well, Ms. Joanne question.
Ms. Joanne question. I'm on there. Yes, Ms. Joanne's question.
And we have another one. Someone has a question about the psychology test and background check. So I guess, okay, all right, so.
I guess they're going to explain
Uh-huh.
the psychology test.
We read the background check.
Evidently, when we saw the man yelling on George Floyd's neck, obviously he was a psychological wreck.
And so, the first thing I'll say is, every department doesn't have the same hiring process.
Okay.
There's not a standard hiring
So I
process
guess,
across the board.
so I guess the question is pertaining to Richard.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I just want to make it clear that, yeah, we all have the same process, but as far as the psychology testing, that's just, when our psychologists are interviewing, or when we're putting somebody through a background, and we screen them hard, we go through their backgrounds, we bring them in to do an interview. And during the interview, we try to find everything we can. We ask them a lot of questions, we give them a chance to come clean a lot of stuff. After we finish the interview, then they go through our polygraph. And so that's where a lot of stuff comes out on the polygraph, because once you put more eyes on the people, they're nervous. They start sweating, they start spilling their guts, something they didn't say in the interview process. But we take all of that, and, you know, right after you do the polygraph, we call them yard phase, we check your criminal history, we check on your references, you know, neighbors, people that you gave us, social media, things of that nature. And we're trying to, you know, build this picture of who you really are. But once we get all that done and everything looks good, then we will give psychologists like summary or something sort of to work with to see what you are, who you are. And then the psychologists can produce their own test, which I can't fully explain their test and how they work. That's not exactly my field, if that makes sense. But they give you their own test, and if I said it's 500 questions, it's not quick, it's not easy, it's a lot of questions. Once you do that test, they grade you, then she's going to interview you, she's going to ask you a lot of questions. And at the end of the day, her job is to make a determination. And it doesn't determine whether you get the background or not, but whether you're suitable or not suitable for police work. Can you adapt to changes? You know, are you very defensive? You know, it tells us a lot about the individual. It gives us a better picture of things that maybe we missed or didn't pick up. So
how do you, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So how do you feel about the individuals who go through all of those testings and all that psychology, and we still have accidents, you know, like what happened in Marcus?
It's not a perfect process at all. And I can't say that that test is made to will address that issue right there on the spot. That makes sense, because those decisions are sometimes made short notice, short time frame, very quick decisions. So I can't say that that psychology test will lead out all of that. But we try and catch, you know, as much as we can. Yeah, that's the purpose of the psychology test. Also, you know, people change over time. And so I said, it's not a perfect process, and it's something that maybe we can look at and keep working on and keep improving, then that'd be great. But I can't justify the marketing computer circle with what we test for. I don't know if I'm making sense or not. That's right. When I say that.
It makes sense. Absolutely. So I just think it's disheartening for the community, and the question needs to be answered. Whether it was right or wrong, that doesn't matter. Just to hear how someone in your position, you know, would gauge that type of, you know, situation. I think that's what the community can benefit from.
Yeah.
You know, so are there tests? I know that you said there is one test that before entry, but how often are the officers? How often do you have to come back for a follow-up per se?
And is that psychological test repeated with a recertification, I guess?
That's right.
No, it's not repeated during recertification. But, you know, we train often, we work on communication, you know, engagement, or communication is huge. That's the biggest weapon that we try to teach. All the time, your mouth is the biggest weapon, not your gun, or whatever you know. And some people just got to learn that. That's just, I'm trying to be as real as honest as I can.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah, but your biggest mouthpiece, I always tell young officers this, your biggest weapon is your mouthpiece. And I was a young officer once, and I had to learn that myself, just how to talk, communicate with people differently. And diffuse the situation, because of how you speak, whatever, and that's really easy to de-escalate the situation. And so you also gotta understand that, you know, like, people might be just having back, and you gotta be able to read people. And unfortunately, some of that comes with just on-the-job experience. You can't train that in 6 or 7 months. You can't just, those are real life lessons. And unfortunately, you know, things don't go always like it should, and officers mess up. And then that's where we gotta come, be accountable and hold them responsible for the actions. That falls in the police department and internal affairs and the disciplinary process.
Let's get another question. Another question, Chad?
Yes, can you explain the disciplinary process? What are the different steps?
if I can explain it fully. When you say disciplinary process, you mean, because it's a lot of different things that are investigated different ways on certain complaints. But like, I can explain it, like, let's say, you came to me, you made a complaint about an officer, or I witnessed something, then I would call the officer and talk to him. I have to fill out one of our forms called the PD-180 form, like investigative form. And I would also notify my supervisor, because things are supposed to work a little chain. And especially with something that should go straight to internal affairs, you reach out to internal affairs, create a CAD number, you call them, and you let them take over and investigate it. So internal affairs, they're their own section, because they're supposed to be separated from the police, they're supposed to police as you all know. So everything they do, I can't explain, because I personally have never been an internal affairs officer, but, as far as I am, making sure that the complaint gets there, that things are investigated, or that they have all the information they need, that the immediate supervisor or supervisor is supposed to take their information gathered, whether it's me gathering a statement from one of the citizens, officers, witness, whatever, and make sure that all the information is shared and sent through the internal affairs. And they're supposed to do the investigation, determine, and then our disciplinary review also determines the outcome. So one person do the investigation, the other person determines the outcome.
I had a question on regards to recruiting and the call for demilitarization of the police department. And what are some of the sources that you go to recruit at? Is it just military? Should it just be focused on military? Should we look in other areas? And could you explain what are some of the other areas that you're looking for candidates in besides ex-combat?
Well, I can easily say, we haven't recruited military heavily in years. And I think 2019, I think we went to 2 military bases that year for recruitment. But we do go to community events very heavily. We do go to colleges very heavily. Any type of event, because policing has changed. So we're not looking for just military personnel trying to get out and want to come in and do policing, get people who have psychology degrees, social workers who all want to be dispatchers, community, we're pulling from everywhere. And so we're not focused on hiring strictly military personnel.
Yeah, that was one of the suggestions I put forth to the chief, is to look in other areas like social workers, etc. Because we gotta get these bad apples up out of police.
That was something that was done, years back, but, we sort of went away from that, and I can't say that it was fully intentional, sort of how things went, and, just the person at the time had a good vision on, hey, let's bring different types of people into the department, because, just recruiting generally in the past, but, yeah, definitely gotta hit the military base, that's a must, and they focus a lot, get people, go to every military base, but yeah,
We've seen the result of just doing that. They come in with the gun hold, shoot them up, bang, bang, it's over. That's what we want to get rid of.
yeah, and I can't say, I know that's, thought, but I can't say that's all military personnel.
Not all military people, yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. Because you are.
Yeah, no, that's it.
Majority.
Yeah, I'm majority, it shows, I ain't gonna lie. So that's not the attitude, of all military personnel, or, I feel comfortable not the majority of military personnel. Because there's a lot of discipline that comes
Right.
in the military, but you also have officers who have never had this kind of responsibility, or it makes them feel empowered, having this badge in the hand, and they let it go to the head sometimes. And I'm not talking about RPD internal, I'm talking about just overall.
Right.
And so, people who couldn't go to the military or wanted to be in the military and didn't have the courage to go, those are also some of the issues, the problem people in police.
Okay.
So, yeah, I can't say that military
Is
personnel
that some of the questions that I asked to the candidate?
was that.
To try to probe into where they may be psychological? Like,
All that,
if
or,
they have these hang-ups.
yeah, no, we screen everything, whether you try to look at police officers, police departments, when you want to go military, didn't, like, we try to tear through everything. Now, it's not a perfect process, we don't catch all, that's, we've been completely open and honest, but we tear through everything, we go through the job history, we check with every agency that you apply to, because you might tell one agency something, and then it got you kicked from their process, so you come to our agency, and we're told you might have told that agency in Pennsylvania, but not told us down here in Virginia. So that's where, we work hard to make sure that we screen and reach out to everybody that you apply to.
Okay.
And I think, with the new law took effect March 1st, we got to be more open, and they have to tell everything amongst police departments. Transparency, so that's
So
what
is there a national, data system that relates the information between departments, or do each department has to call another?
Yeah, it's each department calling, faxing, and especially locally, we depend on relationships with amongst background investigators and recruiters. I feel like we have pretty good communication. Like Chesterfield, right along, we're very open and honest amongst one another. Even though we compete for the same candidates and things of that nature, we're very open about, hey, I seen this and this is what concerned us, and this is why we did hires and good.
And I think that kind of piggybacks off of one of the participants who was watching out there, question that they had. They said, how far reaching are the background checks, and is it countrywide? It says too often officers are fired from other states, cities, or counties to only get a job somewhere else. So I feel like they're kind of,
Okay. That's,
oh,
okay.
they are?
So we have Twan, let me see if I can turn this around. Okay, here we go. So we're real interactive here today. We got over there going, we have Facebook Live going, we have Instagram Live when we get going. And for anyone who doesn't know, Shy Love, Lawrence's partner in crime. So, all right, and this is,
Sergeant Stanley.
Sergeant Stanley Sutton, and then we have
Dr. D. Morgan, talking to Streets Entertainment.
yes. So, and then we have our guest on here, Twan, that was featured on our flyer. So go ahead. Speak up. You gotta talk louder. Talk louder. Let's see. Yeah, we can hear you, but my phone's kind of low. Go ahead.
Well, we do have a full reaching process, and some don't, and it's part of it because it's funding. It's not cheap reaching out to someone in Arizona or doing a background for someone in Arizona, and we're limited with funds as well when it comes to it, but we do reach out to everyone. If you came from that department, we want to see your personnel file, we want to see, talk to your previous supervisors, we want to see what HR has on file about you, and if you terminated from another department, if you're terminated from another department, 9 times out of 10, we're not even gonna touch you. And that's been since I've been in place. Now, I can't speak for what has happened way in the past, but we don't touch, if you've been fired, unless it's something, and I can't really think of circumstances where we would give it a pass. If you've been terminated from another police department, we're not gonna pick up the problem, call them a problem, so we're not gonna incorporate someone else's problem. So, and that's something that we did, and something that we gotta try and catch, because people don't always build those things as well. So it's something that the officer might be able to went somewhere else and track them there, but they never told you that they're with the department. So that's something that you really got to dig through and find during investigation. But every place that you live or been, we do criminal record checks. We reach out to the local police departments and check as well, whether you are a former police officer there or just a citizen that used to live there. So if you live in Tucson, Arizona, San Diego, California, somewhere in like Michigan, we can check every jurisdiction during our process. That's during our mail-out phase. That's what we do. That's why it takes the longest, because we got to check and verify with everything, everybody, every employer if we can. That's pretty much what we do. We'll normally, if like it's a contact for, say, like, also have like a Rubik's plan or something like that. We'll look at it, we'll look at, the details of, try and get the details of it, and see, like, was that a one-time thing? The young officer not probably knowing how to conduct themselves and talk to someone, or was that a repeat offense amongst that officer? Because if it was a one-time thing, and you learn from your mistake, then that's something that we can work with, we can look at, because you can get training when you come here regardless. But if it's a repeat offense multiple times, then no, we want to entertain it. And I'm being completely honest with you, because I was a young officer and I had to learn how to properly talk and engage with everybody in the community. And I made my mistakes as a young officer as well. So,
You did, but, wait a minute, you coming back?
yes, sir.
You want me to?
Yeah, and that is a part of the process, and it's actually like 3 parts of the process. Like I said, so recruitment and how we doing things is always evolving. So, it's part of your initial testing process when you apply and you try to become a police officer before you even start your background. We screen and ask those questions and see how you feel about interacting with different people, different communities, dealing with someone who has a different belief other than your own. We question those things. And then when we're doing your background, and you sit in the background investigation, we question those things as well. And we're double checking it with our polygraphs and things of that nature as well, seeing if you're being honest about it or you're not. And then that's another part where the psych comes in, because the psych, the psychologist can expose and reveal a lot of that stuff as well, whether it's truthful, untruthful, which we do have happened quite a few times. Psychologists tell us that someone wasn't being completely honest or whatever, or a polygraph exposes them. So it's not just one part or one-time question in the process. It sort of happens repeatedly throughout the process. And like I said, the process is not perfect, but we're always involved in it. And I can tell you, we make changes. Even over the past year, we're constantly trying to make changes and improve things so we address any